to our next session, and we hope everybody could connect from Europe to us. So thank you, and thank you to the musicians and everybody. That was a wonderful thing, and good to see you, Dalia and Iman again. So okay, bye, and let's see if HowlRound can connect us to our second last session. So welcome and hello. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Yeah, hello.
Hi, Frank.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi there. Wonderful. I'm not sure what happens. I hope we didn't make any mistakes with time. Frédérique and Thomas are supposed to be with us, but it has happened a couple of times that they signed in a little bit later, or the link didn't work right away. So thank you for joining. Were you able to see some of the sessions?
Yeah, yesterday evening I saw one session, and today I think 2:30 to 3:30 session. They were wonderful.
So
wonderful.
What did you think of the event so far?
Oh, it's wonderful.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your work. Maybe we start with Pavana. Pavana, tell us who you are, what you do, and how you are connected to the world of theater.
Yeah, good afternoon. I am Pavana. I'm daughter of Pendyala Varavara. He's a revolutionary poet, Telugu revolutionary poet. Personally coming to me, I teach general English to undergraduate students. And I am the third daughter of Varavara. And coming to Varavara, here I am connected because Varavara is not in a position to join. He is one of the accused in Bhima Koregaon case in India. Some of you might know about it. This is a case framed on altogether 16 intellectuals, writers, advocates, and many more. One among these 16 had passed away recently, Father Stan Swami. This is a case booked in India that is basically on the voice of dissent. And my father, Varavara, is one among these 16. He was arrested in 2018 August, and he is in jail. He has been in jail from then. Just 5 months ago, in February, he had got a bail. He had got bail on medical grounds. He was very sick last year this time, and he got bail on medical grounds in February. And from then he is living in Mumbai, but it's a conditional bail. It's a conditional bail. And one of the conditions of this bail is he cannot, that is, he cannot speak or he cannot participate in any of the public activities. And especially related to the case, he cannot speak anything. There is many of his, he's on bail, that's true, but a lot of his mobility is curtailed through the conditions also, because of the conditions. So because of that reason, he is unable to participate directly in this program. So on behalf of him, that is to talk about his work, and also the pandemic, how the pandemic had affected his health, and also all that is how it had affected on family. Myself, daughter, and Venugopal, nephew of Varavara, we both are trying to share some of the things, something about Varavara.
Yeah, that is quite something. So it's been, I guess, quite a prominent case in India, and maybe Abhishek, you can talk a little bit about it, what it represented.
About the case you are saying?
Your father, yeah, the jailing and the bail.
This particular case, he was in jail for 3 months, and bails have been rejected in the local court, that is Sessions Court, NIA. There is an act in India, there is an investigation agency, National Investigation Agency, and there is an act in India which is UAPA, which is known as UAPA, Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. So under this act, bail is made so difficult. So from last 3 years, no one is getting bail in this case. My father is the first one who has got bail on medical grounds, at least for 6 months.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is his condition. And jail conditions, yeah. Shall I just shall I directly talk about the pandemic situation and how it affected?
So but first let's welcome, we have Thomas now with us and Frédérique. Thank you both for joining. I think you are, I guess, in Berlin and in Paris. And it's really great to have you with us. It's must be around 12 noon. But tell a bit about the pandemic. Yeah, what is the situation for you?
Are you asking?
Yeah, Pavana?
Yeah, coming to this case, India is one of the worst affected countries in this pandemic, and jails, prisoners. That is, here I am representing a political prisoner who was one of the, that is, he was affected by COVID in the jail. So last year, exactly around this time, July, in July, he was very sick. He was very sick, and maybe a month before, almost from May onwards, March 2020, March lockdown started in India, and jails, everything was locked down. We did not have any interviews with them. Family could not get any interviews or nothing. And also, we were getting only phone calls. That too, once in 15 days for 5 minutes, we were getting phone calls from our family members. That is from my father. This was the situation from March to May, March to June, July. That is, it was continuing like that. And in these phone calls, what we could understand, what we could know is conditions, hygienic conditions, and altogether the situation in jails was worst. 20 to 30 people were made to live in small barracks where in normal conditions also 10 people cannot live. So in the pandemic conditions, there was no situation of social distancing. There was no possibility of the social distancing at all. No water was properly available. That is, it was summer, so water was not sufficiently available. So hygiene possibility was not there. Washing hands or any of these possibilities were not there. So these were the basic situations. I'm trying to put it a little brief. So these were the conditions in the jail, which he was informing us over the phone call. But from June onwards, we could see some difference in his talking. That is, he was a little incoherent and not really answering, unable to hear. So we could see something, some ill health we could understand. And in July, we could clearly understand that his electrolytes were down. Maybe one of the reasons. By then he was also having, afterwards we came to know that by then he had diarrhea and he was coughing, but jail did not get him tested and did not even inform us. That is, they did not test the pandemic, that is about the COVID. And all these things might have led to loss of electrolytes and many things. So he became incoherent, and we made it we held a press conference, and internationally also we got some good support from different people and different organizations. And then he was shifted to hospital on July 13th, 2020. And July 16th in the hospital, he was tested positive for the COVID. So we understand. Afterwards, what we understand is, in the jail itself, before this test, almost his 14 days of incubation period, whatever it is, all that would have been completed. That is, he had suffered with all these things. Along with this, he was, as he lost electrolytes, he was incoherent, and he did not have he was not really very conscious about what was happening to him. Only his co-accused were helping him and supporting him and nursing him, and he did not even understand. He was not even in a position to tell what kind of a health issues he was getting. So afterwards, we came to know from his co-accused that he was coughing a lot in that period, where the jail authorities did not give him any kind of a health support, or any test was not done. No health aid was given to him. And this is
what happening is quite a catastrophic situation. It is such a catastrophic failure of the state of India in so many levels. We have heard that in the last 22 hours, and we are shocked, and we really feel for you, and we hear you, and it is quite a situation that cannot be tolerated. And this is also one of the reasons why we did this because the situation in India, as we learned from Abhishek when he was on the Siegel Talks, when he described seeing together with Anarupa 500,000 people leaving the lower caste, New Delhi on foot, up preparing to march up to 1,000 miles. And it is devastating. Let's go to Venugopal. Tell us a bit about you and your work.
I'm in Venugopal, poet, a literary critic, translator, columnist, social scientist, and public speaker. I have been a journalist for the last 4 decades. After being in mainstream for 2 decades, I switched over to alternative medium. And now for the last 18 years, I have been running a small alternative monthly in Telugu, my language, Telugu. This is called Journal of Society and Political Economy.
Yeah. So how do you see the situation from your eyes as a journalist and as a writer?
See, this crisis, not even in singular, it's in plural. The crisis of pandemic of COVID-19, I have been undergoing this for the last 16 months at various levels, personal, social, and political. You have been asking about personal and political, but there is also a social angle to this. At personal level, Pavana has been telling just now, my uncle and who married my sister. So both ways, he is very close to me, my heart. And I also subscribe to his ideology and his writing. So at personal level, his crisis, he getting positive tested and he being incarcerated for 3 years without any charge and his deteriorating health, all this has been a very huge personal crisis for me. And for him, he has been a poet for the last 60 years. He has published 16 volumes of poetry and non-poetry, literary criticism, history, and all that. He has published another 15 volumes. He worked as a teacher, in Telugu teacher for 30 years. For that kind of a person undergoing this crisis, for ordinary people, we could imagine what would be the fate. And not only that, my entire extended family, almost 80% got positive tested for COVID. That is another crisis. My wife, she's also a journalist, a filmmaker. She also got tested positive, and not only just tested positive, she almost touched the borderline of death. Almost all the medicines of COVID are used against her. For about 10 days, doctors were saying they cannot tell anything, she may die. Only on 11th day, miraculously, she survived. And one of my sisters-in-law died because of COVID. So at personal level, it's huge crisis. But I think these personal crises have a lot to do with political crisis. Apathy of the governments, both at the central level and state level. Deficiency of pro-people governance. Sufficient medical care. Corporate health mafia. Failure of various systems. This case has gone till Supreme Court, but nothing has happened. And all pervasive fear psychosis among people, not to touch the other person, not to hug the other person, not to talk to the other person. So that led to a kind of unsocial behavior. After all, human beings are social beings, but COVID-19 made us unsocial. You cannot touch the other person, you cannot talk to the other person. So that means
just to say, the numbers are staggering. 3 million people, most probably, who died. Only 1 or 2% vaccinated in India with that new variant coming out. It is catastrophic, and from all the testimonies we heard. Did you, both of you, we can continue the conversation, but did you prepare a reading? Will you share something with us? Because we have about 5 minutes or 6 on your time left.
I'm just going into that. Because this political crisis at social level, most major crisis is misery of the migrant workers in India. Most of these migrant workers come from North Indian states. They come for living in Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, South Indian states. When the COVID and lockdown was imposed, all the transport facilities were cut, and they 100 million to 140 million people started walking back to their villages, thousands of kilometers. So that going back to villages through Hyderabad, we have organized some relief work. I saw them personally. Every day it was a crying scene. And from there, I started relief work, writing, speaking, and bringing out my own journal, a monthly journal. So that way, I also spoke at the Sahitya Academy, that is the prominent organization, central government organization for literature, that organized a symposium on literature in the time of pandemic. I also spoke there. And I have written at least 4 poems on the lockdown and COVID. One of them I would read and end with that.
Please do read. Yeah.
This is basically on the return march of the migrant workers. I titled this poem as On the Banks of River Sorrow. On the banks of river sorrow. Processions of sweat drops all through our great highways. At each terminal, you see fainted bodies, clusters of personified tears, a river of grief till the horizon, flowing to reach the ocean of native village, whether gruel or hunger waiting there. All our Grand Trunk roads, national highways, diamond quadrilaterals, golden corridors, toll roads and bypass roads, 4 lanes and 6 lanes, look wherever. Each footstep is painted with the blood of sons of the soil. Each footstep is painted with the blood of sons of the soil. Those are the inerasable stains of blood. On my hands, on your hands, on the words and deeds of the rulers, on the bursting lockers of contractors and the rich and the powerful. This is a march of hunger and march of gloom, march of exhaustion and march of anxiety. This is the march of my country's wretchedness. Powers that be are self-assured that it is only a march of angst, but not of anger. How I wish it was not a march of misery. How I wish it was a march against exploitation, a victory march against oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's quite devastating to think, these 500,000 or million people leaving with a suitcase, babies on their shoulders, and women also pregnant. So, Pavana, do you have a reading for us? We're a little bit out of time, but still, maybe share with us something if you have prepared something.
I'll just add, because Varavara is not, he's forbidden to write and open out, but she is reading a poem he wrote when he was last hospitalized in 2012. He wrote on nurses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nursing. Blood developed unruly ebb and tide, forcing me tied up to a hospital bed. Asked what I liked most there. Service motto of nurses more. Waddling like a row of ducks, each one takes up assigned works. Same tender hands offer service. Faces change, particulars erased. Hold the wrist to inject intravenous. Push a bitter pill deep into the throat. Keep vigil round the clock as an eyelid. Nature call or pain or vomit, attend it with kindness, without any feeling other than compassion. 1 round in the ward is enough to turn the fragrance of powder puff in the morning into stink of sweat. But the scent of service remains always. Not many words in discharge of duty, even if they talk among themselves, unable to understand my language. It is a magical Malayalam. But then, which need of mine was not attended? These days, it is the super specialty hospital that attracts rulers and administrators, corporates and sundry in election dust. Media and mafia, before going to jail, in some self-designed case, feigning illness for seeking bail. Will anybody here, under this canopy of service, transform into a toddler in mother's lap, become a human being again, shedding snakeskin of selflessness? This is a poem written on 20th March 2012, published in a book. It is translated by N. Venugopal.
Thank you so very much. And the poem did ask, does anybody here, and I hope this talk is a contribution to that. Tanvi and Abhishek put together, I think, 50 Indian artists who joined us for this talk each hour, 2 of them, sometimes 3. And it's the first time that a number of such greatness come together in 8 different languages, not just dialects. So it is quite a stunning, and I think it's really something to bring an awareness to the situation in India. We have now with us Frédérique and Thomas. We go, Thomas, if it's okay with you, to Frédérique.
Sorry,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm just interrupting. There was a question that if it can be dedicated to anyone.
Yeah.
So my father wants this to be dedicated to Father Stan Swami, who is his co-accused, who was his co-accused and who had passed away. That is, there is a question which I could, which I saw in Tanvisha. I just wanted to add that.
And that is important. We asked, and I apologize. I thought it was to your father, and so there was a beautiful. And please tell him, yes, we do hear. And so let's go to Frédérique, who is with us again for Siegel Talk. I think we had one of the wonderful and great conversations when we met last time. I don't know if you heard a little bit of Peter Schumann, most probably not, from the Great Bread and Puppet Theater, who was talking about Mother Earth and who was singing and playing one lined viola, or what he called it. So, and he was talking about the earth and the importance of it. Frédérique, how are you now? How is the situation in Paris and France?
Hello, everybody. I must say, first of all, that I'm very, very moved to be part of this international world conversation for India. I must say that in France, we are quite lucky to have the vaccine. At the moment, I'm not in Paris. I'm in this little countryside house that we spoke from last year. During the first lockdown. So for me, it's a very strong feeling of being back in this house where I spent 3 months without going out at all during the first lockdown. And I was, in relationship with the world like now. Things have been better in France as well, of course, but now we are in the middle of a 4th wave. So the news are very, very worrying. Everybody is wondering whether we will have another big wave that will actually make the hospitals in France in great difficulty, as it was last year. The vaccination is going on, but lots of people are still against it, and we don't know what will happen with the new variant. So it's kind of stabilized as a situation, but of course, still very worrying, because now we are all in relation to each other in the world, as we know, and what happens in India directly, touches us. So let's wait and see, but it's still very worrying.
Yeah, I mean, theaters are open. The Avignon Festival is taking place. One of the participants of the Avignon Festival also joined us, and she said, actually midnight last night, the new restrictions come in that you will have to show your passport, actually your vaccination passport. I don't really know how they will enforce that, how that could be done with after parties. So it's quite a strange situation now coming back. Frédérique, you talked so much about that space, these 10 meters above and 10 meters below the critical zone, that we have to include the plants, the animals in our thinking. We have to get away from the human as the center of our planet, or our universe. What has happened in the time in between? Have you new thoughts? What's going through your mind?
Well, you know what happened in this year is that we were working with Bruno Latour on a new play called Viral, because we couldn't think of anything else, you know. Indeed, one of the ideas of the work I've been doing with Bruno in theatre is the fact that we are changing world at the moment, and we are entering a new cosmology, so to speak. And this cosmology is made of a kind of entanglement of living things. And I think it's very, very striking for me to realize that this terrible, deadly virus, in a way, tells us something about the critical zone. It tells us something about the fact that virality is actually, in a way, the new, I mean, it's actually the condition of our world. So there is a terrible paradox for me to realize that this deadly thing also tells us something very important about our codependency, the fact that we depend on each other. And in a way, I've been discussing a lot with Bruno Latour in the last year about that, and the fact that we've been so surprised by this virus. We've been so shocked, we've been so taken, you know, by surprise. And in reality, this strange thing tells us something about the way this critical zone works, because everything is linked to microorganisms and everything. So it's a violent paradox, I would say.
Yeah, it is quite stunning, actually. Part of our DNA is a virus. Scientists tell us viral mutations have been important for evolutions, you know, just for the human body, for the reproduction system. 4 or 5 kind of viral mutations had to happen. It's now it becomes obvious, you know, that this is something that had always been with us. They are the oldest kind of living parts of planet Earth. I think in earthworms, they discover something. This is perhaps 1 billion years old and still living and existing. I remember when you talked about it the last time, you said the virus actually is like an actor. It's like we are in this theater. Maybe tell us a little bit about it for all those who couldn't join, and that idea that you use the metaphor, but also the structure of theater to explain the world actually we live in.
Yes, I mean, can you just rephrase your question?
So the idea of the virus as an actor.
Yes. Basically, what we did in the last plays was to use the idea of the question is, what is the typical object of each cosmology? And one could say that Galileo used the planets or the falling bodies as the typical object. And the problem of that object was that you had to be outside of the world to see it. You had the scientists had to be outside of the world, because the falling bodies, in reality, they never work as Galileo tells us. They work differently because you have, you know, the friction, it doesn't work. So science has been built on a kind of idealized world. What happens now, if you take the virus as the new scientific central object, and there's no way you can do something else, we have to take it as the new scientific object, then you have to go back in the world. And that's what we try to do with Bruno, with the theater. Theater for a long time was outside of the world. And now with this new object, if we take it as the typical object of our new cosmology, it brings us, scientists, artists, it brings us back on Earth. And of course, this is one of the key ideas of Bruno Latour thinking, but it's also what I'm trying to do with theater, to bring us back all together in the same stage, in the same Theatrum Mundi. And I know it's also something that Thomas Oberender, he inspired me a lot about that as well, the idea of immersion. Immersion is, I mean, there's no way out in a way. we all are in this critical zone. And theater, if you take it as a model of the world, it's amazingly powerful as a way to play with forces, with positions. We used to be outside of the theater, and now we all have to get back in, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, so and you have that concept of Gaia. I mean, Peter Schumann, in a way, earlier when he was in front of his painting, you know, he talked about the Mother Earth actually, and I think your insistence, I think, in your theatrical work, you know, to rethink that concept and go back to that old Greek idea is actually of significance. Have you, in that new work which you are developing, are you making new discoveries? Did you something that surprised you?
Yes, I think in this new work that we are trying to do, what surprises us is the way in which we can rediscover the earth. We thought we knew it, and in fact, I think if you take seriously this idea that you need a new gaze in a way to redescribe the world, then what is interesting is the way in which art is at the center, in a way, of the discussion. You know, we need artists, we need designers, we need poets to redescribe this world. And I think that's the kind of, at the same time, I was saying the terrible teaching of this virus, but there's also possibly an optimistic one, the fact that we need to rediscover the world in a new way. We need science and art to unite in a way, to be able to see the importance of living things. And that's really what makes me optimistic, if we can be at the moment in this terrible situation. But the fact that, you know, the kind of things you're doing now, helping us to encounter throughout the world, listening to Indian poetry, and you know, it's exactly the kind of things we need now politically, I would say. So yes, I'm still looking for new images, you know, not the tons of images we have every day on Instagram, but new kinds of images that we have to create in order to understand the entanglement. And the fact, as you said very well, that viruses can be terrible, but we also need them. So how can we cope with this new vision of microorganisms? How can we include them as important actors of our world, with whom we have to communicate, with whom we have to negotiate? So that's a completely new and fascinating endeavor to do collectively.
Yeah. I think it was Brian Eno who said, when it came to arts and science, he said that so many people think they are sisters and brothers or twins. He says, actually, in science, a result should be independent. If you are an African American, if you are a Swahili, a Bushman, if you come from Indonesia, but if you do art, it should be different what you do. So how do you combine those two ideas of looking at reality?
I hope I understood well. You mean the science and art different take on reality? Yeah,
he said if you're in a scientific experiment, every result should be the same, completely independent from a background of the scientist. Meanwhile, in the art, you want to hear the differences from, you know, the regions. So how do you see that?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I think scientists change a little bit on that matter, because precisely the type of scientists who work on the critical zone, they really depend on a very situated place. Of course, they're still looking for general truth. I mean, science is about that, but still they have very situated data, situated knowledge. And in a way, they meet art on that. And it's very interesting for me to see the new kind of alliances you can have between scientists working on very specific areas and an architect or a designer who will help him or her to draw specific aspects of a place. So I think there is this new situated knowledge thing, which helps science to meet art. And in a way, art is also being more globalized. So it's not as divided as it used to be, even in terms of epistemological question. It's really going hand in hand, more or less. That's what I feel.
Yeah, that is quite a paradigm shift, as you said, a new era we are entering, and the locality of observations, determine also results of our research. I don't know if you prefer something. If you want to read something, it might be now a good time.
Yeah.
If you have something, yeah.
I would love to read just the end of the play, of basically moving Earth, but it's also the end that goes towards the new play, Viral. So it's just a very short text written by Bruno. So I'm not Bruno Latour and I'm not the performer Duncan, but I will read it anyway. Imagine being told that the world in which you thought you were situated is not at all like the one you imagined. There you are, quietly surrounded by objects with clearly defined shapes, a table, a chair, each separated from the others, and the whole collection inserted as in a painting inside a space independent of them. And you are there, in front of this spectacle of objects that move only if they are pushed or pulled, Galilean objects. You obviously have in your head a whole set of deep or superficial thoughts, and you feel perfectly distinct from this assemblage of things, at the right distance again, as if in front of a painting. You may see through the window the leaves of the tree, the clouds that the wind blows across the sky, the contours of a mountain, but they too are at the conventional distance, an object among objects, all inserted into infinite space. Now, little by little, things are getting more complicated. The rain clouds that cover the horizon are seeded by bacteria. The skies where the clouds course are held together because microbes have been piling up their droppings in the sky for billions of years. The average temperature you enjoy, the very air you breathe, you owe it to the trees you see outside. Do you realize what's going on? The living beings are no longer side by side, but they are starting to overlap, drooling on each other, mingling, intertwining. These beautiful and deep thoughts that you thought you were having only happen thanks to the billion bacteria in your intestines. The wood of which the chair is made comes from a distant forest. The movement of all these beings carries you away. The landscape unravels. The painting fades away. You no longer see anything like a spectacle. Thank you.
Thank you. So beautiful and insightful and deep. And it's a new way actually of looking at things, and something we can do and should do. We move on then to Thomas. Thomas, thank you so much also for taking a time out and to be with us. So you are back in Berlin. You're in Berlin. So tell us a little bit what's going on in your life and in the city of Berlin.
So I thank you for being invited here, and it's interesting to listen to you, and it's also interesting to be close to people in India. Because we, of course, heard about the terrible situation, and I'm often asking myself how you survive under these conditions, and feel very privileged in our part of the world. And now I hear it from you, and this is important. In Berlin, I have to, I just arrived from Athens. I was in Greek the last 2 weeks. And to continue what Frédérique told us, I started to give a lecture about Gaia Theater. It's something I learned from Frédérique and Bruno in our project Down to Earth. It was a mixture of exhibition and festival and symposium and so on, dedicated to climate change and done under the conditions of Corona. And yes, this what happens in this time when we worked on this project is still activating my mind and my practice as a curator and as a writer. And so if I come back from Athens, I start to organize a big festival in autumn here in Berlin under the situations of a fourth wave we are expecting. Theaters are open again, so we have incidents number is a little bit about 10, but it's increasing again. 40%.
10 out of 1,000, right? 10.
Yeah. And we are now 40%, 46%, I think, are 2 times vaccinated in Germany, 70% one time. The losers of the whole process are the young people. And the young people are not vaccinated right now. Everybody that is younger than 18, or children, that's not good in the situation. And also, of course, Corona is still dividing the society in a way of people who are losing and taking the full risk of the economic crisis and situation, and some people who are more secure because of their jobs. So this is something that is you can feel it. It's there is a tension in the society, and I'm thinking a lot about the way how the government helps, what kind of hidden strategy or effects this kind of help will have on our society. And it reminds me, of course, also on the situation, let's say 30 years ago when we opened the wall after the revolution in East Germany, and how the Western part of the society reacted on that. It's, for me, very comparable to the reaction of let's say, the reunified Germany on Corona. So this enormous steps we make are done to make no change. So this is, it should be stabilized, what was given in the past. And it's not really used to make a transformation we urgently need to do as a society. And I think Corona helped us to understand that we have this crossroad right now. We have to decide if we go on the one direction, this is stabilizing. And of course, there are many good reasons for giving people money, but it's the money of our children. It will come back as a problem in the next generation. And on the other side, I don't feel really that there is a big change in our society regarding the operating system of everything, you know, the way we travel, the way we make the economy, and so on. So these are the thoughts, but compared to other parts of the world, we have a privileged and very good covered situation in the country.
Abhishek pointed out also in his talks, he did say India in a way has resources. It's no longer a poor country. It's actually in some ways a high-tech country. It's one of the big producers of vaccination. That's why it's so stunning. It's a little, he said it's a complete failure of leadership, of government. It is a catastrophic development that was taken actually into account. People just did not care. How is the mood in Germany, in Berlin, but towards the government, and how do artists feel? How do you feel about how things were handled?
I think usually governments are the winners or profiteer of big crisis very often. And if they make the crisis, if they manage the crisis, they manage their power to be continued. And in Germany, we have a big election in autumn, so nobody knows what's coming next. We know that Angela Merkel is stopping to be the Chancellor of the Germans, but who will be the next? It's not clear. We have a new situation. I think the style of politics is changing, also because driven by Corona. You know, many people don't trust the system anymore. So there is a strange QAnon fantasy of elite, and so the system becomes in a way a fiction in the awareness of many people, and that's interesting. We saw what happens in the United States when they run on the Capitol and occupy the Capitol. So this was in the end of Trump's era. So sometimes I think that new movements are to be observed in this time. Political situation is really like, for many people say it's like in the 20s, but nobody wants to think about it in all the consequences. It's interesting time, but it's also demanding time.
Yeah, I think it is also something where it is clear we do not know. We just do not know enough to make judgments. We do not know what will happen. We had a talk just earlier, I think it was with Thailand, with Sasapin, who's a curator, who's just the biennial festival. And just 2 months ago, we talked, and she was cheerful, and overnight, the situation turned dramatically. There are, I think it's that the military, she feels oppression of the people. There are dead people on the streets who died from Corona. People are at home alone. People are in a devastating situation that was really 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, not obvious. And so we really do not know where this all is going. We think this is officially the end of the Siegel talks on Corona. We felt it was important to highlight that actually, you know, this is a global crisis and it will go around, and only if the entire world would be vaccinated, I guess, this crisis would come to an end. We cannot say someone who comes from Brazil, you cannot enter the US. We cannot say you're from India, don't come in here. And also that global economy would not work. What do you see, Thomas, as developments, you know, for states or nation states? Will there be big shifts in how we organize societies, or is it what you said earlier? It will stay. Can it really stay?
I'm not sure how to answer this question on the level of states or nations. I see that we have Corona is also, of course, we all wish that states like Belarus or Hungary, to speak about Europe, and you have the same problem in India. You have a right-wing government, and we all wish that this tendency comes to an end and re-democratization starts. I don't see that right now. I see it not on the level of nations. I see it on the level of, let's say, activism. I see that there are young people, or I don't know, alternative, autonomous people who start to invent new operating systems for alternative institutions. That's what I'm very interested in. I'm personally I will jump out of my position to reinvent my work again And
Is
maybe
that because of Corona? Did you do that?
no, it's not because of Corona, but yes, in a way, yes, because you feel how institutions like this, like the inner operating system of an institution like this, how strict and how iron, yes, how with such a new power of hierarchies and so on. This is something I can see on many levels in society, but also in my own company. And I think there must be different ways. And I found, of course, I will try out something to escape and to go in a different direction. And I have the feeling that many people are doing like this. So my favorite example in Berlin is the Floating University. If you go on the website, it's an institution that is grassroots, organized. It's for you, Frédérique, and Bruno, it would be a wonderful place to meet people who are working in this third nature area that is not culture, it's not the romantic idea of nature, it's something in between. It's nature in the cities, it's cities that starts to realize that there are so many species around us that have their own right, and they organize an institution around this idea. And I have a big respect for these people who are doing this work. And I started also to think about my work. And this was, by the way, the intention to give this speech in Athens about Gaia Theater, because I learned, in a way, I invented the word because the virus is a big power to inventing words. People have to, it's a new reality and they have no terms to describe it. And if you find the right terms, you are not lost anymore in the way. So in the language itself, there are tools for new behavior. And if you study the new words, you see how we deal with the situation. And I collected them, the words, for a long time and still do it. So one word, when I thought about theater, that I started to invent was Anthropocene. The Anthropocene is the scenery in which the anthropos is appearing. And for us, it's very natural that we think, oh yes, theater is between people. This is from the Renaissance on, the model of all these Galilean theater models. It's between humans, strictly, only. And it feels totally natural, but it isn't. And that's why I'm so interested in your traditional theater forms in India. You communicate with ghosts and with, let's say, animals. And in the shadow theater, you have, it's not only about humans. And this is what I'm starting to research. And that's my understanding of Gaia theater. It's a theater in which much more actors are embedded than humans. And how can we do that? To which end it leads us if we follow this way? And yes, this is something that Corona taught me, because like Frédérique told us, it's the virus is an actor and makes us, it forces us to see that the virus is not outside, it's inside, it's modifying our DNA. This is what we call progress, development. And this is another concept than the concept of Darwin. It's Lynn Margulis. It's symbiotic relations. Mm-hmm. And it's not nice to speak in this way if we see the catastrophe in India and other countries, and also in Germany, that was caused by Corona. But in the same way, we learn, if we go deeper in the process, that it comes from somewhere. And because we are go to some places we haven't been before. And so the places come to us in ourselves and occupying us. And what we are starting now is negotiating with the virus. The virus, by the way, we have right now a huge climate disaster in Germany. We did have this enormous flood that destroys villages, and more than 140 people died in the water. And this is still shocking. Germany is under shock, and but this is also an effect, of course, of this whole transformation of our climate system. And this starts to trigger different interests, concepts of how we are situated on Earth.
Yeah, that is.
There are some interesting theater projects about climate change and Corona, especially about climate changes. Or it's in the tradition of what Bruno and Frédérique are doing since some years. And so great production. You have to invite him. It's a wonderful artist, Arne Vogelgesang, such a smart person, such a brilliant mind and deep artist. What he develops, like Vogelgesang, like the birds singing. This is his name. And I really learned a lot of seeing his productions. He gives an answer on an artistic level how to deal with this new situation, aesthetically, not only content-wise.
He did it in the idea of a lecture performance, right? And
No,
a
not
step
really.
removed almost from theater. Yeah.
It looks more like it's an internet format. It's something like a battle, or so it comes from this world, but it's interacting with the real-time viewer and perspective of the people who see the show, who are included in the show. It's a wonderful structure he develops also to questioning the medium itself, the digital medium and the medium of theater, because theater is the medium of repetition. And the biggest problem of climate change is repetition, doing always the same. State gives money for performing revolution, but no revolution happens. So this is the point when he starts to change the way how he uses the instrument theater. You see, I like it. And this is also something it's a gift of this crisis.
Yeah. Thank you, Thomas. I mean, we didn't want to interrupt you in case you prepared something to read. It's too late. We will have to go to the next session. But really, both of you, Frédérique and Thomas, thank you for sharing, for showing your support, but also giving your deep and I think meaningful, very, very meaningful insights. And because you are both such thinkers, but in a way also practitioners of theater, and you're looking for answers. I think you all, both of you, are asking the right questions. Thanks you to Venugopal for sharing the poem, Pavana for talking about your father who couldn't be with us, who normally would be here if it would be in jail, and what of the brutality of that system, and Abhishek and Tanvi. These are both the organizers. Abhishek is a great writer, director from India, and Tanvi is a wonderful producer and also a practitioner. So really, it is amazing. We coming now to, I can't believe it is the last session after this one. So really, thank you. It was very meaningful also towards the end to have this reflective and quite deep thoughts that you leave us with us, and something to think about after so many of the frightful, devastating complaints we heard. Thank you so much. And I hope I meet you all in person soon one day. Would be one of the wonderful things. And thank you, Frédérique and Thomas and Venugopal and Pavana for sharing. And let's move on.